What's going on, y'all? Johnny J back at it again with another video. So today I am just dropping nothing but reaction videos on this channel, and this right here, if you're watching it, is going to be the start of me watching a new anime series on my channel. Now, if you were on my channel and you saw that I had watched the entire series, the anime series of the 1997 Berserk, so it's episode 1 all the way to 25. Loved the series. Unfortunately, ended too quick, in my opinion. And I was asking, all right, what should I watch next? What should I watch next? What should I watch next? So one subscriber or one person that watched my videos was like, yo, check out this series right here. So I was scrolling through, did a little research on it, and I was like, all right, cool, I'm going to do this series next. So this series right here is called Vinland Saga or Vinland Saga. I do not know how to properly pronounce it. Thanks to the American school system. But anyways, this right here is a video, I think from, let me check the channel out real quick. Yeah, Anime Uproar, that's the name of the channel. So big ups to Anime Uproar. This video is called This Anime Teaches What You Won't Teach in Schools. Vinland Saga Explained. So big ups to Anime Uproar once again. Hopefully this video does not get taken down, and if it does, then I'll figure out how to put it up. But yeah, man, this is going to be the next series that I watch, so hopefully you guys watch it along with me. I might take the approach a little bit different than I did with Berserk. I don't know, I'm still trying to figure that out. But anyways, let's get into this right now. Let's have a brief idea of what is in store for me when I start watching this series, so that I can have a better understanding of the series overall. Because when it came to Berserk, I just hopped into it. Finished it off, and then I did the explanation video at the end, which is going up today. So let's get into this right now. What series, baby?
It's Animac here for Anime Uproar, and today I will be talking about Vinland Saga, which is already one of my favorite anime of 2019, and that is saying a lot. 2019 has given us some truly amazing series, including Mob Psycho Season 2, Dororo, Attack on Titan Season 3 Part 2, Demon Slayer, and many more, but Vinland Saga has made this series that much better, and I absolutely have to make a video talking about it.
Is that good? I'm gonna check it out.
I want to talk about it because of the important lessons about war and human nature that this anime teaches us, and in my opinion, you can learn more from just watching this anime than you can from many history or civics classes that they actually teach in schools. I know I probably sound like I'm exaggerating here, but I really don't think so, and during the course of this video, I will explain why. By the way, I will only be covering the part of the story that has already aired in the anime as of the making of this video. So if you're concerned about manga spoilers, don't worry, there won't be any manga spoilers here. The first thing that struck me about the Vinland Saga anime was how it begins, and the story of Thors in particular. Thors was once a ruthless and remorseless Viking warrior who inspired fear in his enemies.
So this is another fighting, like, type of anime. Fighting in the sense of, like, swords and things like that, like regular weaponry. That similar to Berserk, which I guess that makes sense as to why the person said I should check that out. So it's not like on some Dragon Ball Z superpower type of fighting. This is more like an event piece, I guess you can say, right? Because Berserk was like medieval times. So I'm just curious to see when this occurs. I think they just said it, but I kind of lost it for a second. Anyways, let's get into this.
And he had risen all the way up to the rank of commander in the Jomsviking band. But slowly, Thors changes and begins to see that war is not all that it's cracked up to be. After the birth of his first child, Thors realizes that there are more important things in life than glory on the battlefield, and he begins to see war for what it is: cruel, tragic, and unforgiving. Because of this, Thors decides to stop being a warrior and opts instead to build a peaceful life in Iceland with his wife Helga and his two children, Thorfinn and Eva. Thors develops the belief that a true warrior does not need a sword, meaning that a wise man should spend his life pursuing constructive and productive things, not destructive things like war. This philosophy is very much in line with the lessons we've been taught in schools and in the media ever since we were children, and when I say this, I am primarily referring to the Western world, the so-called First World, which has been largely free from large-scale military conflict since World War II. And if this was the whole message of Vinland Saga and Thor's remained the main character of the story, then this anime would not be anything new to us. We get to see some cool Viking stuff, we get to enjoy the vibes and badassery of Thor's,
So this is way
and
before
that would
then.
have been that. But what
Way
really
before,
makes
like, the
Vinland
time of,
Saga
like, Berserk.
memorable, what really
Not
makes
saying they're in
it
the
stand
same
out from
timeline,
other
but, you know.
modern stories about war and conflict is what happens a mere 4 episodes into the anime. Despite his best efforts, Thor is forced to leave the peace of Iceland in order to participate in the wars that the Vikings are waging in England. He doesn't do this willingly. He resists the call to fight at first, but he eventually relents because Floki, another Jom's Viking commander, threatens to make all the innocent people in Thor's village suffer unless Thor agrees to come with him back to England. Thor doesn't want innocent people to pay the price for his warrior past, and so he ultimately agrees to heed Floki's call. Unfortunately for Thor's, Floki never intended to fight alongside Thor's again. Instead, angry that Thor's abandoned the Jomsviking for a peaceful life, Floki contracts Askeladd and his men to ambush Thor's and assassinate him. Even when ambushed and vastly outnumbered, Thor shows himself to be an unbelievable warrior and he outclasses all of his opponents. But Thorfinn, Thor's young son, had secretly boarded Thor's ship back in Iceland, and as a result, when they are ambushed by Askeladd's men, Askeladd is able to use Thorfinn as a hostage. In order to protect his son, Thor agrees to give up his life, and Askeladd's men succeed in assassinating him. This sets the main story into motion as Thorfinn begins blaming himself for the death of his father.
Okay, so
and
he
dedicates
takes
his life to becoming a powerful
he
warrior
takes
so
the
that he can
place
one
of
day
his
get
father as
revenge
far as being
and
this
kill
this
Askeladd
warrior.
in a duel. The story then follows Thorfinn's development from a grieving child to a ruthless killer bent on revenge. But beyond the surface of the story, there are clear historical and philosophical lessons to be learned. Back in Iceland, when Thor and his crew were preparing to leave England, many of the young men of the village and even Thorfinn himself were actively looking forward to going into battle. Viking culture and the Norse pagan religion glorified the act of being a fearless warrior.
So that's pretty dope. They're actually pulling certain aspects of that era, that Viking era, into the series. And of course, they're making their own story, but it still seems based off of this explanation, it seems like they are actually following what went on during that time period. So that's I like that. I like that. I like when they actually use that and create a story versus them creating their own story and they try to throw shit in there to make it somewhat fit in that timeline. So that's like the issue when people kind of like Americanize things. That's what they usually do. But for them to actually do it this way, it's so much better because it's much more true to what's actually going on. Of course, it's not going to be exact, of course, but it's better that way, you know. So big ups to
Warrior
the
above
creators.
everything else. And so these young men who had never actually seen war firsthand were excited to finally fulfill what they believed to be their true purpose as Norsemen. However, the one experienced warrior among them, Thor's, is the one who dreads going into war rather than looking forward to the idea because Thor's knows the true face of war. He knows the suffering, brutality, and destruction that war brings. To him, war is not just a story.
He got shot
not
with
just
an
a
arrow and he
glorious
still
fairy
lived.
tale. To him, war is a cruel and harsh reality that he had to face many times before, and Thor does his best to convey this message to Thorfinn and the other young men from the village. But the lesson that Vinland Saga teaches us is not just a simple, war is bad, so we should all just avoid war, and then humanity can live happily ever after. Life is not as simple as all that, and Thor finds himself in a situation where he cannot avoid war even though he clearly wants to. If he tries, other innocent people that he cares about will be put in danger, and he is left with little choice but to fight again. This is often true in the real world too. Most soldiers who fight in wars don't do so because they genuinely enjoy risking their lives and killing others. Most soldiers fight because they believe that it is the only way to protect the people that they care about. They fight because they believe that they are defending their families, their friends and neighbors, their communities, and their countries. If they had the choice, most soldiers probably wouldn't fight at all. But often in war, people feel that they have no choice but to fight. They see fighting as self-defense. They are afraid that if they don't fight, they will be defenseless against the enemy, or they are afraid that someone will punish them and their families for refusing to fight. Even if you want to avoid war, you can still be dragged
What series
into
is
it
that? It
against
looks
your
interesting.
will. And that is exactly what happens to Thors. Thors has the right frame of mind. He is wise and disciplined. He is experienced and strong. But he still ends up dead, not through any fault of his own, but because of a series of events orchestrated by other people.
Because of his
This is
stupid
the
ass
basic
son.
principle
Just say it.
behind
His
the
stupid
real
ass son
school
got
of
him
thought
killed.
in international relations.
Sit your ass
No
at
matter
home,
how
nigga.
peaceful you want to be, no matter how badly you want to avoid war, sometimes it's out of your control. Sometimes war is unavoidable, not because of your actions, but because of the actions of someone else, actions that you cannot control. And that's why you have to be prepared, vigilant, and strong. Being strong might save your life one day, but being idealistic will not. And while you can learn this way of thinking if you start taking courses in international relations in college or university, from my experience, this is not the type of lesson that was taught to me in elementary school or high school in Canada. Now, my life experiences are unique because I moved to Canada at the age of 10, and before that, I lived in what is now the former Yugoslavia. When I was still a small child, a civil war broke out in Yugoslavia, and I was a refugee from the war. I saw and experienced a lot of hardship, and I don't say that to present myself as a victim. On the contrary, as hard as those experiences were, they made me stronger in the long run. But the point I want to make is that having lived in both a war zone and a calm Western nation like Canada during my formative childhood years, I learned to look at the world from multiple perspectives. With that said, it seems to me that here in the West, many people operate under the assumption that large-scale conflict is a thing of the past, just because there is no large-scale conflict going on where they currently happen to live. I love Vinland Saga, but we don't have to look back to the Viking era to see the horrors of large-scale conflict. As we speak, there are large-scale conflicts taking place in parts of the Middle East, Africa, Southeast Asia, and Eastern Europe. And there is civil unrest in many other places of the world as well. And yet, here in the West, there are individuals who will get genuinely upset about mean words on Twitter and play the victim while people in other parts of the world are facing life and death struggles on a daily basis.
Facts.
When you live such a sheltered and insulated existence that even mean words on the internet offend you, you will find the idea of an actual war absolutely.
Pause it there, man. You know those people won't survive. When real shit happens, like you take those like privileged rich kids that live in the bubble, you take them to the hood, they gonna lose their mind. They gonna be crying. And so could you imagine if you took them to like a third world country? That's why, like, you know, it's situations where some of these Americans that have this entitlement aspect, when they go to certain countries and they act the way they want to act and not follow their rules, they get punished. And then they are crying, they're all upset. That's why I remember, I would never forget. It was that one kid that went to North Korea years back, and he did some bullshit. And him doing that little thing that something is seen as little over here, over there, they was like, nope, you going to jail. A few months later, he was dead. And it was like, well, we don't know what happened to him. So I remember that shit happened. That's why you do not do no fucking bullshit in a place that you don't know. On top of that, you cannot have that type of mindset in those places, because a lot of y'all will not survive. So anyways, let's get back into it.
Absolutely incomprehensible. You will start believing that if we all just wish hard enough and retweet enough tweets, world peace will be achieved. I'm not saying
Don't
that
work
these are
like that,
bad
coach.
goals. I am of course anti-war, and I believe that world peace would be an amazing thing. But we have to understand that sometimes events are out of our control, and sometimes we have no choice but to fight back, even if we hate the idea of fighting. That is just the harsh truth about life, especially when we look beyond the so-called first world. The school system and the media apparatus here in the West don't always paint an accurate picture of the world. They act as if war, conflict, and struggle are relics of the past, and they imply that society is sure to one day progress beyond such petty things as war. Again, this sounds nice, but there is no guarantee that this will happen. Progress is not some inevitable historical force. There is no such thing as an end of history, and merely wishing for world peace will not make the world peaceful. Thors wanted to live in peace. He did his best to live in peace, He risked his life to live in peace, and in the end, violence still found him. And then, after his death, this same violence turned his own son into a ruthless soldier, even though that is exactly what Thor's wanted to avoid. We've all heard the expression, violence is never the answer. But Vinland Saga teaches us that life is not that simple. In recent years, we've all heard the media make sweeping generalizations about men, and we've seen men as a group in general being accused of not doing enough to stop toxic masculinity. Some major brands even believed that implying that some men might be good but most others need to be ashamed of themselves was actually a good way to sell shaving products to those same men. The truth is that toxic behavior is toxic behavior, and it can be exhibited by both men and women. There's nothing
Facts.
toxic about being a strong man, about being assertive, and about being prepared to protect your family from
For
attack.
metal.
You might be the most peaceful man in the world. You might be a vegan who refuses to hurt a fly. But if you're walking in the woods with your wife who is 8 months pregnant and a wolf attacks you, you better be willing to grab a rock and smash that wolf's skull to protect your family.
J. Cole had this line where he said, "Everybody's a killer. All you gotta do is push them to the limit." That's true. That's definitely true. Everyone has the potential to kill somebody, to fight, to save their lives or the lives of their loved ones. You just have to put them in the right scenario. Does that make them a bad person? No. That makes them a person that wants to survive. You even see this with animals in the wild. Like, certain animals are real cool, real docile, real calm. But once someone invades in their territory or threatens their children, animals just snaps. You know, it's just animalistic instinct that's in all animals, including humans, right? Because humans are technically animals. So
You may not want to hurt the wolf, you may not have any ill will towards the animal, but if the wolf attacks you, you must fight back. There is nothing toxic about understanding that sometimes, despite your best efforts, you will be faced with violence and aggression. When that happens, the solution is not to curl up in a ball and cry, or to close your eyes and wish for a more peaceful world. The only solution is to be a warrior, and that means having the strength to deal with less than ideal circumstances. There is an old Latin saying, if you want peace, prepare for war. And I think
Facts.
that this is one of the biggest lessons of Vinland Saga so far. You should seek peace. You should be a good person, and you should not engage in toxic behavior, whether you're a man or a woman. But you should also be aware that other people don't have the same values as you, and they may try to trick you, trap you, and attack you. You need to be aware of that, and you need to prepare for that. Otherwise, you'll end up like Thor's or Ned Stark, and in the end, your loved ones will still suffer. You can't protect anyone if you're dead, so you must always be vigilant, clever, and strong enough to survive. Setting a story in a harsh setting like the world of the Vikings is a great way to illustrate this point, but the message is just as applicable in our own lives here in the modern world. In your own life, whether at work, at school, or at home, you will face challenges that are no fault of your own. You will deal with things that you never wanted to deal with and that you did your very best to avoid. Don't expect to live a life free of challenges, no matter how hard you want to. And don't be surprised when those challenges one day cross your path. Instead of being surprised, be prepared. Instead of giving up in despair, fight and overcome. Be a good person, but be a clever and vigilant person too. Expect the best, but prepare for the worst. Whether you live in the 11th century or the 21st century, this is the only way to survive. Unless you live in a perfect world, and spoiler alert, no one lives in a perfect world, you will have to deal with imperfect circumstances, with imperfect people, and with an imperfect society. We have to accept it, embrace it, and push through it. And in that sense, we are all warriors, and every day is a battlefield. If you enjoyed this video, you can leave a like to let me know. And if you happen to be new to Anime Uproar, please consider subscribing.
Well, y'all, I'm gonna cut the video off right there. Big ups to Anime Uproar once again. This definitely got me interested in watching this Vinland Saga, especially when he broke down like the underlying meaning of Vinland Saga, that you are put in these situations that are completely out of your control, and it's up to you to become a warrior and take on those situations, whether it's through acts of violence in order to defend yourself, or if it's something that's a little bit less violent but it's still put you, quote unquote, out of your comfort zone in order for you to survive, because it's all about survival, right? And yeah, I'm very interested. I want to see how many episodes is dedicated to Thor and how many episodes are dedicated to the Sun, because it seems like the Sun is really the protagonist in this, and Thor is at one point the protagonist, but then takes a back seat after he dies. So I just want to see that transition phase and how long it takes for before the Sun realizes that he has to become this warrior. So oh man, I can't wait till I start watching this series. So big ups to the person who suggested that I watch the series, and hopefully you guys that watch Berserk watch this series with me, and if not, hopefully new people they come out and watch this Vinland Saga series with me. Anyways, this is Johnny J. I'm out.